WrestleMania 41 review, let's get right to it. So the first night of WrestleMania starts out with the World Championship match. Jey Uso's whole gimmick is that he's the main event. He has the words main event printed on the back of his shirt. Yet, here he is at the first match of the first night of WrestleMania. Gunther, like Edge at WrestleMania 27, is supposedly the world champion, yet here he is kicking off the show, which completely undermines his position on the roster. Additionally, let's not forget that Sami Zayn completely humiliated Gunther at WrestleMania 40, where Gunther is completely destroying Sami Zayn the whole match. Then Sami does 3 moves and wins the match. And then after the match, Sami Zayn is walking around no-selling the whole match like Gunther did no damage. So, if Sami Zayn can beat Gunther in 3 moves, why would Jey Uso have any issues? As for the match itself, it was a solid match, but I was distracted by the Fatal Fury logo in the middle of the ring. I was trying to figure out whether it was real or digital, because I just couldn't believe that they would actually print a Fatal Fury video game logo in the middle of a WrestleMania ring. So after this match, they show an aerial view of the stadium, and I noticed there's almost no cars in the parking lot. So what'd they do? Make the people park a mile away? Then after that was a crap load of commercials, and I couldn't believe how many there were, considering we've only had 1 match so far. So when we finally get back to the show, the second match on the card was New Day versus the Viking Experience. New Day comes out cosplaying as Giant Gonzalez, even though it looks more like Dragon Ball. Then the Viking Experience comes out, and they're cosplaying as these cartoony video game characters. Whoa, wait a minute. Hold on. Back up. This is a WWE Tag Team Championship match at WrestleMania. Why is everybody dressed like anime and video games? With a Fatal Fury logo in the middle of the ring. Imagine if this happened at a classic WrestleMania. At WrestleMania 6, Demolition fought Andre the Giant and Haku for the Tag Team Championship. Imagine if the Action Smash of Demolition come out and they're dressed like Mario and Luigi. And Haku is waiting in the ring dressed as Link. So, who's Andre the Giant? Bowser? That kind of silliness undermines the magnitude of what the match is supposed to be, which is a championship match at WrestleMania. Now, as for the match itself between New Day and the Viking Experience, it was a Raw match, plain and simple. Since when were the Viking Experience WrestleMania caliber wrestlers? So after that match was another crap load of commercials. And by the way, what's the live crowd doing during these commercials? Just sitting around? But after all those commercials, it was Jade Cargill versus Naomi, and this was another Raw match, so I don't have much to say about it, other than the goal of the match was clearly to put Jade Cargill over. After that match was a crap load more commercials, and by the way, in my opinion, this should not be accepted as the norm. The fans should not be accepting of these extended delays between WrestleMania matches. But after all those commercials was LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu for the US title. And finally, we get another match that kind of feels like a WrestleMania match. And the crowd seemed to agree because they seemed to wake up during this match. And although this was a solid match, I would like to take this time to discuss the topic of appealing to casual fans. Because as I said, I actually convinced a bunch of people, including a bunch of 25-year-olds who did not grow up watching wrestling, to watch WrestleMania 40. You know who their favorite wrestler is right now? The Macho Man. So I asked them, I'm like, I asked you to watch WrestleMania 40. How is your favorite wrestler the Macho Man? And this was their response. They were like, you know, when you look at the wrestlers from back in the day, like the Macho Man, Ric Flair, The Rock, there was just something about them. They were just more interesting. But when you look at the popular wrestling characters of today, like Gunther and Jacob Fatu, there's just nothing about them. They just look like meatheads. They're just tough guys, and that's it. If wrestling promotions, including AEW, really wants to grow their audience, then in my opinion, they really need to better understand the perspective of these casual fans and what they want, which in my opinion means larger than life wrestling characters. So after a crapload more commercials, the next match was Shorty G versus Rey Fenix, and apparently this was just a filler match because Rey Mysterio was injured. And as a filler match, it makes sense that Shorty G wins the match just to keep the storyline going. But there was a ridiculous moment in this match. You know how wrestlers like Will Ospreay and Ricochet will do a bunch of flips and then they look at each other and the audience claps? There was a moment in this match when Shorty G and Ray Phoenix, they didn't even do anything. They just kind of rolled around, looked at each other, and the audience clapped. It's like, they didn't even do anything. It seems like wrestling promotions have conditioned the fans to clap whenever the wrestlers look at each other and chant "This is awesome" whenever they kick out of a finishing move. Then, after a crap load more commercials, the next match was Charlotte Flair versus Tiffany Stratton. Now, I have to give props to the commentators. For WrestleMania 40, I was getting so frustrated because I felt like they were giving away the endings to the matches with their commentary. But at this WrestleMania, they weren't doing that, so I appreciate that. But as this match went on, you could kind of tell that Tiffany was going to win based on the way the match was going. With Charlotte dominating early on, then she injures her knee, and Tiffany's kicking out of everything. Another thing I noticed was how similar their presentation was. They were both wearing similar pink costumes with similar hairstyles. And I was wondering if the costume designers took that into consideration because I was guessing maybe it was intentional. I was guessing maybe by presenting them both so similarly, they are trying to visually elevate Tiffany up to the same level as Charlotte Flair, who's a 17-time former world champion. Next, after a crap load of commercials, was the main event of night one, which was the three-way between CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns. And this did not fully feel like a WrestleMania main event because it wasn't even for a title. It felt like the main event of a WWE Fastlane or something. As for the match itself, it was your typical modern-day three-way no DQ match, checking all the boxes. Fighting through the crowd? Check. Smashing through the tables? Check. Kicking out of everything, including finishing moves? Check. In this match, Roman Reigns gets hit with a pedigree, followed by a curb stomp, and kicks out. Seth Rollins then gets smashed through the table, kicks out. Then, CM Punk puts Seth Rollins in the go to sleep. You guessed it, kick out. Just a whole bunch of kicking out of everything and the crowd chanting "This is awesome." Then, Paul Heyman takes a steel chair and slides it to CM Punk. But for some reason, he gets in the ring and stands behind CM Punk, which means he's about to do something. He attacks CM Punk, then hands the chair to Roman Reigns, but for some reason, he stays in the ring, which means he's about to do another thing. So he attacks Roman Reigns, then hands the chair to Seth Rollins, and now he walks to the corner and lays on his back. He's done doing his things. Then Seth Rollins hits Roman Reigns with the chair one time, does a curb stomp, and actually gets the pin. Oh, wait, once again, wait a second, back up. I thought these wrestlers were supposed to be kicking out of everything. How does Seth Rollins beat Roman Reigns with one chair shot? That makes no sense. So night 2 of WrestleMania begins with the Women's World Title match. And I have to ask again, is Io Sky even a star? I mean, yeah, this crowd cheered for her, but as people have been saying, crowd reactions no longer represent mainstream popularity. This is the era of wrestling where some indie wrestler can walk out on Raw or Dynamite, the crowd goes crazy, but mainstream fans have no idea who that person is. But as far as the match itself goes, this was actually a really exciting and well done match. I wanted Rhea Ripley to win because she actually comes across as having star power, but the finisher to the match was so exciting that I actually got into it, even though I still don't know why Io Sky is champion. The next 2 matches I'm going to lump together because I don't really have much to say about them, and they were the Street Fight and the 4-way IC title match, because even though the matches didn't suck, it's what you would expect, right? This is what a Street Fight is supposed to have, this is what a 4-way match is supposed to have. Now, as far as Braun Breaker goes, even though the crowd was going nuts for him, I go back to my discussion on appealing to casual fans. The question is this: other than being a tough guy, what is there about Braun Breaker that can make him appeal to the mainstream audience? Because in my opinion, it can't just be he's a tough guy and he's shoulder blocking people. It has to be more than that. So after a crap load of commercials, the next match was Randy Orton versus TNA World Champion Joe Hendry, who in my opinion is the epitome of crowd reactions not representing mainstream popularity, because Crowds may go nuts for this guy, but casual fans seem to have no idea who the hell he is. As far as the match itself goes, Randy Orton pretty much squashes Joe Hendry, which makes TNA look like crap, just like when the AEW World Champion beat the TNA World Champion. TNA seems to enjoy making its World Champions look like crap. So the next match was the Women's Tag Team title match, which was Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez versus Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch. Now, first of all, Lyra Valkyria is the least convincing WWE superstar I have ever seen, more than Kevin Owens. She totally looks like a fan who constantly looks like she's just happy to be there. As far as Becky Lynch goes, at WrestleMania 40, she came out wearing that wild and crazy Party City looking outfit, and now she's back to the leather jacket? At this point, Liv Morgan seems like the bigger star, but I guess the WWE disagrees, because Becky and Lyra win the tag team titles, with Lyra now having 2 belts, looking like she's just happy to be there. Next, we have the main event between Cody and John Cena. Now, this match didn't make any sense to me. At the opening match of WrestleMania 39, Austin Theory beat John Cena in the middle of the ring. That's like getting beat by Marty Jannetty at WrestleMania. So how can he be a contender now? Surprisingly though, the commentators actually acknowledged this, pretty much saying that John Cena is a shell of his former self. As for the match itself, it was slow and clunky. John Cena slowly does one double axe handle after another, then another, then slowly does a shoulder block, then another, to the point where the commentator actually acknowledged it, saying, "Look at the slow motion John Cena is doing." But despite the slow motion, of course there's the kicking out of everything. Cody kicks out of an attitude adjuster, then kicks out of an attitude adjuster from the top rope. Then John Cena kicks out of a Cody cutter from the top rope. Then Cody kicks out of an FU after getting hit by the steel turnbuckle. Then Travis Scott comes out and he starts walking super slowly to the ring. And instead of trying to win the match, Cena just sits there and watches Travis Scott walk super slowly to the ring like a sloth. Then a bunch of stuff happens. Cena hits Cody with the belt and actually gets the pin to become the new WWE champion. Now, I read somewhere that apparently Cena's heel turn was originally supposed to be at WrestleMania, then they decided to move it to the previous pay-per-view. If that's true, in my opinion, they should have saved it for WrestleMania to create that WrestleMania 17 style moment. As it stands, this is an okay WrestleMania, like a C minus WrestleMania. It had matches like the Uso match and the New Day match that had boring finishes, but it also had matches like the LA Knight match and the Io Sky match that had really exciting finishes. As a whole, it feels like a really epic Raw with some borderline WrestleMania moments.